Thank you to you and your colleagues for the invitation to speak here today at Ofgem. Now, Jonathan's alluded to it, and I'm conscious that many of you will have read many of our reports from the Select Committee and our major report on failings in the retail market. And I'm sure the robust language in that report would have been uncomfortable reading for some of you. But the reason I wanted to come here today out of Parliament to speak to you directly is to also say thank you. Because I know that none of you will have wanted the issues that have occurred in the energy market to have happened in the first place. And I know how hard all of you must be working, given the scale and number of challenges that we face in the energy market today. And also because of the clear need for and importance of a regulator like Ofgem to help us deliver the net zero economy that we need to build together, whilst protecting and supporting consumers to ensure a just transition. This speech today is something of a valedictory speech for me as well, as Jonathan said, given the Prime Minister's decision to recreate a new department for energy, security and net zero. And that also means that my Select Committee must change. So a new Select Committee on Energy, Security and Net Zero has been created, and that will be chaired by a member of the SNP, the election for which will take place next Wednesday, and they will take over the reign from the 27th. In the meantime, our very large report on how we decarbonise the power sector will, subject to my committee's approval on Tuesday, be published next Friday. And that will be the last of the energy reports coming from my committee in its current form, complementing our heat decarbonisation inquiry from earlier in the year. And of course, the energy bill comes to the Commons next week after a very long process in the House of Lords. And I was told this morning by Minister Bowie that it's the longest piece of legislation since the Companies Act. And there'll be, I think, quite a tranche of new amendments from government. So there'll be lots of activity on energy policy in Parliament next week that the new committee will have to start picking up. Now, most of you won't know, but I not only worked in the energy sector as a lawyer before becoming a politician, I also met my wife at a conference on regulation of demand-side response technologies. Which means I can only offer very niche advice to young singletons. But now with 2 children, although it worked, but although now with 2 children and a third on the way, both my wife and I know how important energy policy is, both to our personal values and motivations and our work, but also to the country. So my children will be 33, 31 and 27 in 2050. And all being well, I'll be a few years from retirement. And that really puts into focus for me, and I think all of us, that the net zero world that we have no choice but to create isn't an academic exercise. It's not something for future generations. It's something that each and every one of us has to deliver today. So whilst I'll no longer lead Parliament's oversight of energy policy from next week, I will always be an ally, an advocate, an activist, and a supporter of your work. And through the Paris Agreement and our own statutory target to reach net zero by 2050, we have chosen to reach net zero and save the planet from the extremes of global warming. To paraphrase a much greater politician than me, we do this not because it is easy, but because it is hard. You will know that from your work. Because the goal, the ambition of reaching net zero will serve to organise and measure the best of our energies and our skills, because that challenge is one that we have and continue to be willing to accept, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. And much like with any other grand missions, there are those who will want to go slower, who wish to hold us back, who will prefer the comfort of the past over the race for the future. And here at Ofgem and in the wider energy and climate change community, we have a collective responsibility for preventing that from happening. Because we are the reformers, the very nature of your work means that you are, and we are the modernisers. We are the people who must aim for the moon. And gosh, do we have a very long to-do list. This is my handover note to the next chairman or woman of the Energy Select Committee. So we've got to help the most vulnerable and low-income households transition off of bill support from government. We have to find a solution to helping those with accumulated large debts on their accounts. We have to design, I hope, a social tariff, take the difficult decisions about who is and isn't eligible and how it will be paid for. We have to implement the new energy bill. We have to deliver, I hope, a more ambitious national programme of home energy efficiency works. We have to try to find a route through to a profitable energy retail market, which balances the need for capital adequacy, protection of consumer deposits, and effective competition within a market that delivers profits and being honest with ourselves if that's not achievable. We have to create the investment cycles that will drive the speed of investment and infrastructure build out that is needed to not only probably triple our electricity generation potential, but which delivers the transition and distribution networks essential to doing so. We have to come up with feasible answers on heat decarbonisation sooner rather than later. We have to secure the investment, supply chains and skills required to do all the work that we need to do within a difficult geopolitical setting and in competition now with every other country that is seeking to do the same. We have to improve our relationship with the EU so that we can make the most of North Sea wind, probably linking our emission trading schemes and adjusting to a new world of carbon border adjustment mechanisms. We have to realise, ideally, as quickly as possible, that industrial decarbonisation isn't just an imperative, but it is a global competition for ideas and innovations which will generate economic returns in the future. We have to find a way to collaborate with our allies in response to the American Inflation Reduction Act and the European Union's response, so that we are all winners in the transition to net zero. And of course, we must not forget the need that already exists today to adapt to a changing climate. These are just a few of the small policy priorities. And clearly there's a lot to do. Now, some of you will be directly involved with that and some of you won't. The good news, I think, is that on most of those big issues, we largely know what it is that we need to do. We might not know exactly how to get there, but we know what we need to do and what we need to achieve. The bad news, in my view, is that our system countrywide is not delivering at the scale or pace required for us to hit our targets, and that must change. So none of these outcomes are easy and each of them are hard, and unfortunately all of them are urgent. And so I know my colleagues on the New Energy and Net Zero Committee will pick up the baton and do a great job with that work, providing oversight not just of Ofgem, but of the whole energy and climate change ecosystem in our country. My excellent clerks and our energy specialists in Parliament will transfer to the new committee to support them in their work. And I know that all of you will continue to support them, provide evidence and engage in their inquiries. So to the wider energy and climate change community in our country, to all of you here at Ofgem, especially to Jonathan, who's had to sit through me asking him lots of difficult questions on more than one occasion. Let me finish by just saying thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for everything that you are going to be asked to do. And thank you for listening to me today. Thanks so much.